What's up everybody, Chase here. I'm very excited for today's video. It is the first video of 2019. I mean, technically I shot some really great back-to-back-to-back Snapchats to my wife while she was at work with my 3 kids.
So apparently I'm a wiener. Stop putting your finger into the mouth.
Ooh, brother, get your tail out of my face. Get that tail out of my face.
Those were pretty great. But this is my first video here on YouTube in 2019, so of course I'm very pumped about that. I am 54 days in to my 100 days of coding challenge, and I'm really surprised at where I'm at for a lot of different reasons. One, I thought I would be further along. I don't know why I thought that just being me would somehow make me take to this idea of coding really well, like a fish to water. I don't know exactly what it was inside of me. I think it was a little bit of arrogance, I think it was a little bit of ego, and I think a little lack of self-awareness for what time of the year it was. I know that I put out a video that said no 0 days, and I know that I didn't listen to my own advice. Learning to do anything at any given time can be difficult, but learning to do something like coding during the holiday season is something else entirely. Which brings me to my point of this week's video. So right now in the coding journey that I'm in, I've gone through a ton of really cool stuff. I'm in the 3rd project. I am probably maybe 1 or 2 hours away from completing the 3rd project for Treehouse. Essentially what they're having us do for this particular project is take a current form, it's just an HTML form, there's not a lot of fancy stuff going on with it, and apply some JavaScript and jQuery to hide some fields, add some immediate validation for, say, something like an email field, a credit card field, something like that, as well as some validation upon hitting the submit button. If someone forgets to put their name in correctly or their email is not in the correct format. What you have to apply to these fields as a checker against the information that goes inside of these fields is something called regex, which has been a really interesting thing. And writing regex, I feel like, is an art form unto itself. It is a very interesting thing. But essentially what it is if you're going to put in an email address, let's say, and your email could be chase.thompson@google.com. So what this regex does is it checks against all of the possible characters that can appear before the @ or all the possible known characters that would typically appear before the @ symbol itself, the characters following said @ symbol, then the .com, .org, .net, all of the things that might appear after that. So it's a fascinating practice in getting all of that stuff right. Now, regex can also be applied, obviously, to credit card forms and things like that, and a ton of other different fields and forms, and a ton of other applications. But currently, what they're having us do is take this very decent form. It's very basic, fairly mediocre as it were, and add some interactivity, and then inject, in my case, a little bit of humor into it, and really understanding this idea of validation of forms and also adding this interactivity with JavaScript and jQuery. So back to that 54 days in, and I thought I would have been a little further. Here's the thing, when I set forth on this journey, I gave myself some goals. I set some goals, and of course it's January, so I gotta talk about goal setting. And that was where I made my first mistake. And this is where I'm applying really different thought processes and logic to goal setting, as it were, for this year. In my opinion, as is the title of this video, goals suck. Sort of. Bit of a caveat, they're not the worst thing ever, but potentially they could be the worst thing ever, as they could be seen as good intentions, and we all know what good intentions do. Pave the way to places you don't want to go. So what happens when you set goals is oftentimes, depending on the type of person you are, it really sets you up for failure. One of the best books out right now, and in my opinion, really ever on this topic. There's been some really great blog posts or articles or things that I've read that have kind of touched base on this, but they haven't gone quite as in depth, is James Clear's new book, Atomic Habits. It's highly unlikely that if you've been involved in any of this space, this productivity hack space, this idea of getting the best out of yourself, getting the best out of the year, getting the best out of the week, out of the day, and that kind of thing, it's highly unlikely that anything inside this book is new to you. However, the way that he condenses it, the way that he distills it down into real, actionable, just fantastic ways of actually implementing this stuff in your life is truly incredible. And his approach and the way that he talks about it is that goals aren't really that great. They're not exactly what we've put them on the pedestal to be. But what is are systems. And the easiest way to think about this is if let's say I'm in a canoe and I'm trying to get from this island to this island. If someone were to set off on that voyage, they would say, my goal is to paddle my canoe from this island to this island. It's a great goal. The problem is you're missing a lot of components that are going to be important for you achieving said goal. What you really need to think about is the system. The goal is the destination. It's the shore of island B. But what actually gets you there is the system. And the system matters, because if you were to say the system is merely paddling my canoe, for anybody who has ever been in a canoe or a kayak or anything like that, let's say your system is just a paddle. Well, if I paddle 5 times on this side and 10 times on this side and 5 times on this side and 10 times on this side, I'm gonna start to drift this way. Islands here, your system matters. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, whatever it's going to work out to. Maybe there's a current coming. So you have to do 5 on this side and 1 on this side because you want to kind of work against the current. But those things start to matter, and those things start to become a part of achieving said goal. But again, it's that system. And it's that system mindset that allows you to have some clarity and flexibility when it comes to achieving said goal. Like I said, what if you set out on your voyage and halfway through a strong wind starts coming in, from this left-hand side, right? What do? Well, you can't adjust your goal, right? Your goal is the shore, but you can be flexible and adjust your system. Your system can evolve. Your system can become something better over time as more inputs come in, as more information is known. Maybe as you get stronger. Maybe this is the 20th time you've gone from A to B, right? And so the first system was I had to just feverishly, and now it's a much more carefree pace, and you get to enjoy yourself. But your system can evolve. Your system can change. Now, of course, your goals can evolve and change over time, no question. But the idea here is that you should be much, much more inclined to find importance in your trajectory than in the results. And that trajectory is that system. Results, the goal. And I feel like what something like this book and just time spent on learning a brand new skill has really brought me to understand is that we underestimate the importance of small, incremental change. And we overestimate this aha moment, this big, grandiose thing that's going to happen in our lives that's going to just bring all kinds of change and great, new, wonderful things. And what really got me to understand this the best is using, and I know a lot of people, especially in the, let's just say I know a lot of people don't love analogous thinking or using analogy for thought. But when it came to really understanding this for myself and trying to set my 2019 up and finish these last 50 days strong when it came to the coding challenge I've given myself, was this idea that if I didn't focus on the goal at all, if I didn't focus on the shore, if I didn't focus on getting the body I'm after, if I didn't focus on getting to a certain level of coding knowledge, but if I really focused on the system, would I still get there? And the answer is, of course, yes. And that is, I believe, fundamentally the biggest difference between the way that I approached this in 2018 and really a lot of years consecutively of writing goals and really trying to get after it. And I've come to understand that for me, and I think this is true for most, if not all people, probably, unless you're just a different kind of person, that focusing on that system will ultimately get you where you're trying to go anyway, right? Because think about it this way. We've all got like that. We all know this time of year, we've got this idea of the body recomposition or losing weight or getting in shape or getting fit or whatever the case is. Sure, you could focus on, in your mind, I want to look like this, or I want to be at a certain weight, or I want to do X, or do Y, or do Z, whatever it is. Absolutely, you could focus on that. But if instead you focused on the system, the food you were eating, the amount of exercise or movement you were doing with your body, things like that, you'd get there anyway. And it's highly likely, if you stayed focused on that, not only would you get there faster, you'd probably get there in much better shape than you thought you'd be in the first place. And that is what's so fascinating to me about this idea. So, for me, 2019, the way that I plan on approaching this year, and the way that I would highly recommend you approach it this year, and for a much, much better and much more in-depth understanding, pick up the book, Atomic Habits. I've linked it up down below. You can find it at a bookstore, order it on Amazon. I don't care. Just get it. Because I think regardless of if you're trying to get better at coding, fitness, business, your marketing, whatever it is, I'm applying it to my business. As a real estate investor, understanding systems is incredibly important. But the fact that I wasn't really applying systems towards this idea of growth or goals or what have you is crazy, right? It's just crazy. So if you want to knock it out of the park this year, I highly recommend you change up the way that you plan on finding progress and finding growth and getting after whatever it is you're trying to get after in your life. Even if it's side project stuff or side hustle stuff or whatever it is, create a system around it. Have a goal in mind of where you want to go, of what you want to do, of how you want to do it. But establish and set up a system to be able to get there and do it on a regular basis. Because you are what you repeat and you get what you repeat. And that's what's incredibly important about this process. And it's one of the things that I did not expect to learn when I started this process of learning how to code.